Recording in
7
progress.
o'clock. What?
It was just the recording announcement.
Okay. It's 7 o'clock on the 10th of April. This is our capital planning meeting for the spring, number 4. The first thing I'd like to do is call to everybody's attention 2 things. This meeting is being recorded. It is also going to be televised on WinCam. And the primary is a first for this committee. And the primary reason for that is that the selectmen want to listen to our discussion, and 2 of them will be participating in our town meeting motion to create a committee at the end of town meeting. So in order not to violate the open meeting law, it was decided by me that would be best to offer it to TV. That way people could watch it and listen to it. This is very similar. It's exactly like what the planning board does to their meetings. So I will open up the meeting and open public comments. Are there any public comments, Colby?
There's members of the public, but I'm not sure if they have any comment.
Okay. I will note right now, we are on WinCam on.
Hey, Jimmy, can I just interject?
Yes,
So what we do, like at ESPBC, is we ask if there are members of the public who want to make public comment, if they can raise their digital hand.
All right. If there's anybody out there that would like to make
we could
public
recognize
comment,
them.
please let us know. I see none. Colby, do you see anybody?
I do not.
Okay. Review of the minutes. Does everybody have the minutes? Does everybody take time to digest them? Yes, Roger.
I have them. I would like a little more time. I'd like to possibly defer discussion of the minutes to later in the meeting, please, at least.
Okay. Later on this meeting or at another meeting, at the next meeting?
I think we'll have to bring it up later in this meeting.
Okay. Is there a second to that, to move it towards
I'll second. I'll second
between
it.
item 9 and 10?
I'll
Is there
second
a
it.
second, please?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Roger, Helen?
Aye.
Derek? Is Derek in? John Miller?
I'm noticing that John Miller is having some trouble. It sounds like his Zoom is having trouble talking. It almost sounds like a.
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay.
Chris? Chris, do you want to wait till the end of the meeting to after?
Yeah, I'm happy to take up the minutes. I'm happy to take up the minutes after we discuss the report.
Okay. Diab?
Diab is out ill right now. I just got an email from him.
And I do. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 people will take up the meeting, and 3 people haven't responded, which is Derek and Chris and Diab. Okay, let's move on. The Finance Committee articles regarding the review of the capital stabilization. Roger, do you want to read it to the public so they can aware of what we're trying to do?
We're talking about number 4.
Yes.
So
Draft 4.
So this is our review, or these are our 2 motions under Article 37, where we are talking about. I'm sorry, I don't know where that.
It's annoying.
I believe that John Miller is having trouble with his audio and is trying to speak to us, but can't. So maybe, John, you should get off and come back on again see if that works. And then maybe everyone waits until John is back on the call.
I'm happy to wait for John to try and get back. Because if that's weird, it's like, that's very strange noise.
Yeah.
We did pass the other night the the building stabilization fund for the public to know to form a town meeting committee. to evaluate questions and of the Building Stabilization Fund, policies and procedures, and make any recommendations to this fall's town meeting. We also decided at the time that the financial aspects of raising raising money for the stabilization funds truly rest in the hands of the Board of Selectmen. My understanding is the Select Board plans on addressing that. Is the chair of the board there?
Here.
Michelle,
Yes, hey, Jim.
would you like to talk to it for a little bit or about
Sure.
the plans for financial aspect?
Happy to. So, we and Mark too got a little preview of this. So the select board hasn't fully firmed out the scope of what a group might do, but we were thinking, and I think people that have watched previous meetings have heard us talk about a committee with a lot of the same membership: FinCom, capital planning, town manager having some representation, select board. So to the extent that we have FinCom article at town meeting and we have a capital planning article at town meeting, I plan under our report under Article 1 to talk about what the select board's planning to do related to capital. Couple of specific charges, trying to figure out a way to move to actually get to strategy for our capital, the entire portfolio of capital. So moving from crisis management to more strategic management. Looking at sources of money and how to allocate money. What levers do we have? If the CPA passes, that's one. Obviously, we have debt exclusion overrides. Are there any other sources of funding that we might want to do as a policy for the select board? And to the extent that we want to work with the town manager and potentially define priorities for the town manager's capital plan. So we're looking at truly the strategy as well as some of the funding sources, and looking at funding sources over, 3 to 5 year span, not just this next town meeting or even this next current fiscal year. So I think that's what I would describe on Jim. And I think for those of you who are town meeting members, you'll hear a little more detail on that the first night of town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
John, are you back on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
There you go.
I don't know if you heard it, but I'll give you a quick review.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I heard the end. I heard the end of what Michelle said. I liked what I heard. It's great.
Okay, we called the meeting to order. There were no public comments. We postponed the meetings to after item 9. We are recording this meeting.
I heard everything. The only thing you couldn't hear me. I heard everything
Okay,
for the minute I was on.
the Finance Committee articles, number 4 is the Finance Committee articles regarding review of the capital stabilization funds. I had stated to the public that we are putting forward we are putting forward a motion under Article 27 to recommend a subcommittee to review the guidelines established by town meeting in 2002 and 6 on the use of the building and stabilization funds. The members of the committee will include town manager, select board, capital planning, finance committee, and 1 or 3 members at large appointed by the moderator. This committee will have access to town staff and council to review its existing guidelines and report back to the fall town meeting. That was passed last week. Roger, do you want to continue with the motion number 2?
It's our second motion under Article 37. And
Right,
it deals with, and I'm so happy that we have Michelle and Mike here tonight, because we want to explain where we're coming from with this motion, how we got there, and how we want to be able to support CPA. The first thing I'd like to say is there's been some weird, crazy talk going around that because, we're looking at this, there's anybody that wants to stop CPA or create momentum behind it. That is absolutely wrong. It is 100% wrong. I've never heard anyone on this committee say anything negative about CPA. I think everybody on this committee would like to see CPA go through. I can't speak for everybody, but I've never heard anyone say anything negative about it. And this is an attempt on our part to correct some problems that we perceive in what has happened as we move forward with CPA. But I think that there's broad support within this committee that we want to find a way that we can recommend favorable action both on CPA and on the bylaw, and this is a mechanism that we found forward. If we step back 18 months, I realized that the select board had a reason for not recommending the CPA then. They wanted to match it up to the presidential election for all sorts of good reasons. However, we, at least, and I can't speak for FinCom, but I believe that they were in similar concern, had the concern that we need to understand how CPA and how our current capital processes are going to work together to get the best solution for the town. We had that concern then. Fast forward 12 months, we still have that concern. We've communicated to the board that those are our concerns on how we make this all work together. I know it was quite a process for the board. We recognize that you initially decided to move forward without a bylaw, and then sort of urgently decided that you needed a bylaw. Our understanding is that you wanted to proceed with the bylaw so that we didn't lose 6 months or potentially as much as a year of funding on that under CPA. Understand that. So all of a sudden, the bylaw came into existence, and we really haven't had an opportunity to review it. I've looked at it, to be quite honest, for coming into existence so quickly. It was better than I thought it could be, to be quite honest with you. We still have questions about what's in it, how it works, but it is now fixed. It's in the warrant, and that is what's going forward to town meeting. We still have these exact same concerns about how does it all fit together? How do we make it all work together? And this committee still has those same concerns. So quite honestly, this came forward as a way that we saw as perhaps we could get enough along, enough of an answer that we could draw a favorable recommendation from the committee for both the CPA article and the bylaw article. And so what we are asking for here is that in coordination and hopefully in cooperation with the select board, we could get a favorable request or a favorable motion from capital planning on both the CPA and the bylaw, provided that we can create a town meeting subcommittee. We don't want to control it. It has town manager, select board, finance committee, capital planning, and 1 or 3, so we keep it an odd number, member at large appointed by the moderator, that would take time to take this bylaw that is the proposal in the warrant, review it, take on board public comment, make sure that it's the right thing that works for the town, and simultaneously develops a mechanism so that the existing capital planning process and the new WCCP work together and gives the best product for the town. And that might involve modification of how we currently do capital to accommodate the CPA. It might involve, I don't know. I don't have a solution, but we still need an answer to that so that we get a good integrated view of the capital needs of the town, and that things aren't going off to the CPA group and things aren't going off to the capital group. And we want to know that when we do this, we don't have town manager or town department heads doing multiple presentations to different groups. We want to know that they don't have to present one view to capital planning, another group to the WCCP. We just think that this would be a good way to do it. And all we're asking is that a group be presented, a group be created under town meeting. They review the bylaw. There might be some revisions, there might not. They take on board public comment and comments from the affected stakeholders. They may say it's fine as it is. That'd be fine with us. But they also present or create these policies and procedures on how this is all going to work together. And that's where we find ourselves today. And that's what we're attempting to do with this motion under Article 37.
Okay, thank you for a good summary, Roger. Does anybody like to make any comments from the Capital Committee?
Can I share a quick comment?
Sure.
Can I share a quick one? Yeah, so just to maybe add a little more detail to Roger's ending point, if a study committee, if a study committee comes back and says bylaw is fine, but here are some suggestions, policies, procedures on how these two sort of capital entities can work, that obviously could be really helpful. In fact, the study committee may come back and say the bylaw is fine, but what really needs to be rethought is, how does the capital piece work? We'd be open to hearing that as well. So we just don't know what the outcome is unless we study this and have the conversation. And the way I've summarized it over the past week to a couple of folks is sort of this: we have like one capital entity in town. It's the Capital Planning Committee. We make recommendations to the town manager. The WCCP, by statute from 44B, in fact, reports to town meeting. It seems reasonable that we should be asking ourselves and be thinking about, if we have a second capital committee, I put that in air quotes, if we have a second instrument to fund certain capital projects through the WCCP, how would, how could, how should we rethink our legacy capital planning committee, our legacy capital process? It's a good conversation to have, and it's not clear to me that would happen absent the recommendation and the motion. Yeah, that was it.
Any other comments for anybody?
Yeah, I have a comment and a
Go
question.
ahead, John.
I guess that it's I think, is it Michelle and Mike that are on the call from the select board? I mean,
Yes.
I guess I would ask Michelle and or Mike, how would this come about? How would the procedures come about that in a way that didn't involve, from your end, input from the CPC, from capital planning? I'm just trying to figure out why we need this extra layer of process. I mean, it's hard to imagine that the new committee wouldn't want to solve this issue as well. So if CPA passes, so that's either to Mike or Michelle. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hold that till see if any other members of the capital committee want to make comments on this. Is there anybody from the capital committee that'd like to make comments? I'll ask the board members, Michelle and Michael, if they'd like to make some comments and address John's question.
Yeah, I can answer that if that's okay with Michelle.
Yes,
do.
it is. Go ahead.
Thank you for having us here. The Community Preservation Act is a great resource for the Commonwealth, and really a great strategic option for the town, and a select board priority. So, and I know that we had requested to come and answer questions about the CPAs beyond your amendment, so we can take questions on the amendment, more broadly on the CPA, on the process. But I do want to clear up a few. We I think, as someone mentioned, we tailored our process to what the Community Preservation Coalition had advised us on. They're the state group that advises communities that are interested in taking on this process on how to do it. And so we've been following their recommendations to a T. They've been enormously successful. There are 200 other communities in the Commonwealth that have passed the CPA, and so we feel like there's a good track record underneath what they've done and what's happened. The state's put more money into the Community Preservation Fund as well to support those needs. Part of the process is creating a study, and so that is the process that we set up this summer, is to come up with a committee to do some research and writing to come up with a report that we would issue to town meeting. That is the objective with that. It is to come up with a report. That is the study committee. It is not a working group to talk about all things CPA. That essentially has been the select board, and we are the ones that are moving the articles related to the CPA. So, and I know I explained this as well to Jimmy and Roger in multiple emails over the summer, that at this stage, we were creating a study, which will be issued on Monday. And the next implementation phase would be kind of answering some of these questions, and would certainly involve the capital planning committee. So our study committee broke off into different groups: finance, historical, housing, and open space and recreation. And those subgroups worked on putting together that part of the study. That is what the study group is. So I think there's a little confusion there. When you think about a government study committee, it seems broader. Ours was actually to come up with a very physical study, a report. So it's really the community report that we've been designing. So I think there's some confusion there. We wanted to wait on the second article, the governance piece, because we wanted to have the governance conversation post town meeting all the way through the fall. We were encouraged by some folks that we needed to do it now, and certain people coming out of precinct meetings and said, we're not going to support the CPA unless we have that governance piece there. And capital planning members said, we're not going to support it without a member on there. We're not going to support it unless it aligns with the capital planning process. So we put all of those things in there, and it may have seemed rushed, but it certainly had the full attention of our staff, the select board, Anthea Brady and I, that are working on the study committee together, and town council. So that piece is there. We designed that committee to really advise the process moving forward post acceptance from town meeting and really the voters in the fall. When we don't know that the voters are going to support the CPA, but we do trust that the committee that we have come up with is going to be a representation of the of what the town needs, and information that we need to gather. And having the town manager be an ex officio member there, the town manager's office working with the capital here. Mark Toogood is here. Meg White is usually here as well. So we don't see that there's a need for another layer of bureaucracy and creating a committee before the committee, as you're suggesting. So that is our intent. We have been as collaborative as possible in our eyes, and I think we certainly welcome the expertise of this committee, and we have a little bit of experience with it lately, because when we had ARPA funds, we were really kind of working closely between the town manager and capital planning and the select board, and other stakeholders to say, what are the actual projects that qualify under the stabilization funds for funding, under ARPA, free cash, and CPA, right? So we have a list with X's and O's and we started funding things from different funding sources. And that's what this is. It's a funding source. It's not a capital vehicle necessarily, because it's, we're required to also fund policy initiatives around historic preservation and affordable housing as well. So we welcome the opinion of the capital planning committee, and certainly any stakeholder. We are doing outreach to all the stakeholders that we see are relevant to this and have inquired to us, and kind of taken things on the road. So I think that we were it was suggested to us that we don't get involved in putting too many guardrails on the committee before it's created, because then you get into the process of having people say, as we're looking townwide for vote support in November, hey, unless you put this in, we're not going to vote for it, right? And then that's not good government from our perspective. We have elected officials that are doing outreach. We're connecting with stakeholders. I think we have a lot of support, but certainly we expect to have the capital planning committee be very involved in the process post-adoption in November. There's a member on the committee. There's a real relationship, and I think that what I mentioned back in August to the capital planning committee is the town manager, who is by charter creates the capital improvement program, and we work with her on that. She's really the fulcrum between our capital planning projects and our funding sources, and we think that works well. We think that the capital process will evolve as well, and we hear there's some good suggestions there. But as we evolve, I think we do it together on a parallel path, and I think we get some real underfunded things taken care of: playgrounds, historic preservation, open space and recreation, and affordable housing. And I know I just talked for quite a lengthy amount of time, but Michelle, if you want to jump in, I don't know if I answered all questions.
I'm not gonna
Michelle, are
jump
you
in.
out there?
I'm here.
Right.
I'm not going to jump in. I think I want to leave Mike's. Did he answer the question? And I see that Chris has his hand up. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Chris.
Jimmy, I have just a point of information that I think Mike is best suited to address for us. So as I understand it, like 2/3 of the communities who adopt CPA follow the path that's been outlined for us, which is first you go to town meeting and then you go to the voters. There are 2 articles on the warrant. There's Article 9, which basically asks if we agree to adopt the 44B, and then of course Article 10 kind of outlines the bylaw that establishes the WCCP. I think there is some confusion, Mike, about what actually goes to the voters. So if Article 9 passes, is that the question that goes to the voters? Do the voters not actually see, are the voters voting on a bylaw creation, or are they not? Can you maybe just clarify that for us? And I know Jay Tallerman was at your table back on March 11th. I did not get to watch all of that. I was in the car, as I am actually right now. But my sense is there was some discussion about timing and sequence. And so having listened to all of that, you kind of arrived where you are today. I think it would be helpful just to clarify what is being asked of the voters following town meeting. And in fact, we do go to the voters, even if like 9 passes, but 10 fails, because you can always come back for another bite at the apple. I'm hoping that's the case, because I agree with Roger. I mean, I'm generally in favor of this, but can you just clarify what do the voters actually see?
That's a good question, Chris. I don't know I have a good answer for you yet. We've been focused on this process going through town meeting and then seeing where we are. There's no guarantee town meeting is going to support putting this initiative on the ballot. So I will get back to you. Certainly, I don't think Jay Tallerman, Town Council, answered that question in our last meeting, because it didn't come up necessarily. That's kind of the next step of this process. And but certainly, if town meeting passes both articles, the bylaw will be in effect for what we're doing. But to your point, I can't answer whether or not that's going to be a ballot question. It would be certainly a lengthy one for voters. So
sure,
but I'll
the
get
only
back to
reason
you.
I'm asking, Mike,
Yep.
the reason I'm asking is, we're blessed to have so many people in town who kind of follow this stuff closely, and they read their town meeting packets and they watch your meetings, they watch our meetings, and there just seems to be either a difference of opinion or just an understanding about what exactly goes to the voters. Mike, can you also just confirm first of all, if 9 pass, regardless of the outcome of 10, you need 9 to pass for the CPA to move forward. If 10 does not pass, or if it should be indefinitely postponed, and I have no interest in seeing it indefinitely postponed, we still can come back, yes, in the following town meeting for that other bite at the apple. Is the issue of bringing 10 onto the warrant for the spring just one of timing to have a better chance of getting that tranche of money in one fiscal year versus the next? Is that about right?
That is not right. I mean, and I want to clarify that, because I know Roger mentioned that as
Okay.
well. Our motivation for putting the second article on was only based on conversations that we had from residents, and as I said, came out of precinct meetings and people saying, "Hey, we want to know what this committee is going to look like before we vote on the full package, which is fair.
Got it.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we were recommended not to do that. And so we held off on it, but we wanted to be responsive. We wanted to send the message to our stakeholder groups that we're serious about their future engagement with it. And frankly, we also wanted to show good faith. We did it. We included several of those stakeholders by reducing the amount of select board members on that committee, right? So just to show that we believe in the capital planning committee and their representatives and the planning board and the finance committee. So we think that's good government. As far as the process and the you know, your questions are good ones, Chris. We haven't been focused on post town meeting you know, objectives yet, but you know, we will certainly have we have what we're actually going to do is at the town manager's public hearing that is coming up. Those articles 9 and 10 will be the first ones taken up, and we will be there. There will be you know, other stakeholder representatives that have been working on the study there, and town council will be there. So that will really be a kind of an individual public hearing on the entire CPA process, and we can just kind of fire away there. But and your questions, we can certainly add to an FAQ and get back to you as well, because I'm sure there are questions that other people want to know the answer to as well. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's very helpful.
Are you all through, Chris? I saw someone else with their hand raised. Who's out there?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So I just went to the CPC website to determine what they suggest, since we're apparently following their advice. And the ballot question that they propose says nothing about the bylaws. It merely asks that residents accept sections 3 to 7 inclusive of chapter 44B. So there's nothing, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're following the CPC guidebook, then we are not asking voters to say anything about the bylaws, merely about whether we participate in the CPA.
Correct. The bylaws, a town meeting action. The
Right.
vote for the 1.5% assessment is what goes to the voters in November. Should this town meeting approve the bylaw and then town meeting closes, then it can be enacted with the Attorney General's office and become effective probably in July. If there's a change at fall town meeting, we have to wait for town meeting to close in the fall, and then 60 days after the close of fall town meeting is when the bylaw would be in effect. But we can't spend money until we have an approved bylaw approved by town meeting.
No, I understand. I
Yep.
think Chris was asking what was
No,
coming
absolutely,
before the
Dia.
voters.
Yep,
And
I'm
it
agreeing with
seemed
you.
that there is some real clarity on the CPC website. So I don't think we need that's pretty cut and dry, unless the select board is intending on putting more on the fall ballot other than just the approval of those sections of MGL.
And what that would
be,
suggest,
yeah.
what that would suggest, Diab, is so that language sounds that a version I've heard that would sort of comport with the idea that what town meeting needs to do is approve Article 9, so that then the question goes to the voters. Article 9 is just, do you accept the provisions of 44B? And then there is a question that goes to the presidential election. You still have to, you got to take up Article 10 at some point, but what's essential, there's no, I'm assuming there's no question to the voters if Article 9 fails, although I guess it could be like, you know, like we do with the debt exclusion override sometimes, or with MSBA projects, you know, you either have a special town meeting and a general election, or you have a town meeting and a special election. You can always come back and ask town meeting a second time. But as you just read it, that's my understanding, is the ballot question follows Article 9.
Yeah, and personally, I don't. Oh.
Go ahead, yeah.
So I think it makes sense to have the bylaw early. I understand the rationale for that. But I also support the idea of having to be honest, this bylaw came out very quickly. It hasn't been seen by a lot of people. It certainly wasn't seen by this group until just recently. And as Roger has pointed out, there are, I think, some deep questions about how we're going to do the dance between the CPA and the existing stabilization funds, et cetera. And, I would also hope that a handshake agreement might suffice, but in my experience, if it's not put down on paper in terms of how we deal with these two bodies which are going to recommend funding, if we don't come up with a policy which works or which is thought out, then I don't trust handshakes. I'm sorry. I really like to see things on paper. So I support the idea of setting up as Roger said, setting up a committee of town meeting to more fully work with committees. I don't think there's been a lot of CPA working with this committee. I would welcome a much larger amount of cooperation with the CPC, because I haven't seen a lot coming from you folks trying to address the concerns we have. So
Jimmy?
that's where I'm at.
Jimmy,
Yes, are you through, Diab?
Yes, I'm through.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Helen.
how do other towns address this? Because I'm sure this
What?
is not a unique problem with Winchester. So how do other towns address the differences and define each category? Do we know?
I think
I
that's
don't.
something that this committee could investigate, in addition to taking on board public comment. Given the
Okay.
very short period of time between when the bylaw has been proposed and when it's going to have to be acted on, this gives us some time to deliberate, to investigate, and to ask exactly the question that you just raised.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like
I
to
can
make
answer
some
that
comments.
question. I can answer that question if
Sure, Mike.
Mr. Chair, if you permit me to.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The bylaw creates the committee who is setting up the parameters for how they work and how they work with other committees. So the function in all of the communities that have adopted this is the bylaw and the committee that's set up post adoption. So doing a committee before the committee, is not ideal from our perspective. And I think that's why we wanted to really have a much more broader group of stakeholders involved in that process. And so, this committee that you're proposing is actually smaller and less representative than what the committee that we wanted to create. I don't know if it's going to make people feel better. And I will say to Diab's point, we've had representatives from different groups, and certainly Carrie Layton has been there from the planning board and the study committee. We made it clear that the process as we're going along, this is a select board initiative. We've communicated at town meeting. There are very prescriptive steps in this process, and we've been following them to the letter of the law. So, and we believe that the bylaw will support that. And again, we heard pressure from members of this committee and other town meeting members that they wanted the bylaw before they voted on the surcharge to go to voters. So that's what we were responding to.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to speak. I do support the CPA. I do support the bylaw with many reservations. Michael, I strongly disagree with you, some of the statements you made. You had said you had sent multiple emails to Roger and I. I don't remember multiple emails over the summer. I don't even remember one or maybe one or two. We, the capital committee, had gone to the select board 4 to 5 times and asked to be a participant in your organizational CPA. I sent 3 letters to the select board requesting information and being able to put input into the CBA as chairman of the capital committee. None of those letters were ever responded to us either verbally, other than, yeah, we'll take it under advisement. It was never typed or replied letter. I know you've done a lot of work and I thank you for it, but let's get the record straight. There hasn't been much communication, according to your own website, about talking to the public having public input sessions during the summer, during the early spring, winter, having a good meeting with the capital committee like we're having here. These are all things that should have been done, and for whatever the reasons beyond my knowledge, was not done. The very last minute, your last meeting, you had said you weren't gonna do a bylaw. The very last minute, you said you got political pressure during the campaign of people wanting a bylaw. A bylaw was put together rather quickly, then again, without any public input that I know of, without any invitations to various parties involved, and without any public hearings. You've done a great job, but the job needs to be fine-tuned. I believe a town meeting can look at this openly and fairly with participation, can take a product that's pretty good and make it excellent. Excellent means fine-tuning it, developing, looking at the bylaw, seeing if there has to be any other items added, altered, or amended, and to create a minimum of policies and procedures with working primarily with the capital structure we have in town, which is the CPA and the capital committee. This is something that will make a product better. It will really not delay the product very long, because I know you're going to a November election. And this is what this town does. We work together collectively. We rely on the skills of the town meeting personnel. And when town meeting gets involved in a subcommittee, it is always a better product, and it is a much more credible project. That's my personal opinion, and I think it reflects the majority of the capital committee. Thank you for your work you've done, but it can be fine-tuned. Are there any other comments? Because I'd like to vote on this motion.
Yeah, I would just like to make one comment, Jim, so thank you. You're absolutely right. You did send us as a group 3 letters to the select board. I can't answer for why the previous chair never responded back. We were never asked as a board to give permission for the chair to draft a response. So, but it's a new day. And I think Mike is here, and CPA committee, I think you'll see more communication happening, but you're right. From your perspective, those letters went to a black hole. It wasn't clear exactly what we should have done in response, because it's not the select board. There was a broader CPA working group doing that work. And it wasn't my vote as a member of that select board to compel Mike to do so. Maybe as a board, we could have done a better job in drafting a response and clarifying that. So I just needed to acknowledge what I can and own what's appropriate. But what's done is done, and we can do better going forward.
Well, I believe we all can do better with a town meeting committee and have a better product. And it's not going to hurt the CPA. The CPA is good. It adds credibility to it, and it adds a check and a balance. If people out there know town meeting is looking at it. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just jump in,
Sure.
Jim, I just want to, correct a little bit here. I'm looking at multiple emails between you, me, Roger, staff, and Thea over the summer, and really sharing exactly what I just shared, that the study committee is not an implementation committee, and that we would deal with that at another stage. And I also said I'm happy to discuss the path moving forward in multiple emails. I will send these emails to the rest of the capital planning committee. But I think we made it clear we were open, we were accessible. We didn't require the feedback of the capital planning committee at that stage. So it seemed strange that we kept getting these emails from you, because I think we made it clear that we were putting together a report. And there are certain people that are part of that report that won't be part of the committee moving forward based on a recommendation, like the schools. So different parts of this phase require different feedback. But at all times, starting back in, August 15th through the 18th, 19th, a lot of us, including you, were an email change discussing all this. So, I think we've we've been communicating as much as possible. You know, we look forward to passage of the CPA. We hope the capital planning committee supports it. We trust that whatever happens post adoption, that the representation on the CPC committee or the CPA committee, we trust that they'll do a good job for the community.
Well,
if
I
I
disagree with
may,
you, Michael, on multiple emails. However, that's the past. I want to move forward. I want this to pass with, and I'd like to see the conditions of town meeting looking at it as a subcommittee. I think it's about time for motion to adopt on 37, I'll call it B, the CPA. Does anybody want to continue the conversation? Okay, Roger, can you give me a motion?
I move that we adopt the second motion under Article 37, which is titled the CPA bylaw and policies and procedures motion.
Would you like to read that so everybody's clear on what they're voting on? Please.
I can read it. Colby, can you bring that up for me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Is there a second on Roger's motion?
I'll second it.
I'll second the motion. But I also just wanted to offer for Mike or anybody else who's not aware, I think we're going to go through other motions and talk about
Yes.
capital support. I support Mike and others. I support Article 9. I support Article 10.
Okay.
And I just think it needs to be very clear to town meeting that this is not about an objection to the CPA. I mean, everything that's already been said tonight. So
Okay.
it's going to be really important that the message is crafted properly here.
Okay. Helen is second it.
Scroll
you
down,
see at a
please, Colby.
table. I'd like everybody to read it and look at it. Unfortunately, it's not up on TV.
Do you want me to just read it, Jim?
It is moved and seconded that the town meeting create a subcommittee to review the bylaw adopted by the spring 24 town meeting for the town of Winchester, implements a Community Preservation Act as approved by spring town meeting 24. If amendments to said bylaw are recommended, they shall be presented to the fall 2024 town meeting and reviewed for the consideration by vote. In addition, to review the bylaw, the subcommittee is directed to develop and report back to town meeting approval, policies, and procedures of how the CPA will integrate with the current capital process. This subcommittee will include town manager, one member of the finance committee appointed by the finance committee, one member of the select board appointed by the select board, one member of the capital committee appointed by the committee, 1 to 3 members appointed by the moderator at large. The numbers shall be in the discretion of the town moderator. The committee shall have access to town staff and town council as needed.
Just
I'm gonna
one
call a vote.
clarification, Jim. It's 1 or 3, not 1 through 3. Just 1 or 3 members.
I'm sorry. And that is
Yeah.
to have an odd number. All in favor, Roger,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Derek, John,
No, I don't think, I think it's not necessary.
thank you, Chris,
Aye.
Diab,
Aye.
and Johnson is an aye. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1 no and 1 absent. Okay, let's move on. Thank you to the select
Thank
board
you very
members for
much.
attending. Please stay.
Thank you so much for having us. And
Yes.
Jim, if you want us back, you know, to answer other questions about the CPA process or study, as I mentioned, we're reaching out to stakeholder groups and are scheduling meetings. So please let us know. Happy to come back.
We're available.
We appreciate the time.
We will be voting on the CPA and the bylaws later on. If you want to stick around, I'll let you know tomorrow if you don't.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I might stick around, Jim, and just go off camera.
Okay, thank you. Capital stabilization on CPA article. The next, the capital planning committee articles and motions. I have tentatively assigned the capital report to myself, Article 22, which is primarily DPW capital stabilization equipment, to myself. I'm asking Roger to do 23 and 24, which is the seek authorization for the town to borrow flood neck service line abatement. Article 24 to fund the engineering for reconstruction refurbish of the Woodside Woodside sewer pumping station. I've assigned myself 25 to do the South Reservoir Dam. I've asked Chris to do 26, do traffic improvements. The strategic maintenance plan I'm going to do. On Article 37, I would make the first recommendation for the capital stabilization fund. And Roger would make be the presentation for motion 2 under the CPA capital creation of a subcommittee, town meeting subcommittee. If anybody would like to do anything, let me know. I will probably make the statement regarding the capital 9, CPA, and 10, the bylaws. Are there any other motions for capital planning that we need to have done? Articles of motions?
I don't think these are articles or motions. And
No,
perhaps,
well, I did them with the presentation because they are articles. I actually combined 6 and 7 together. Capital Planning Committee articles, we've already voted on. And we voted, I believe, on the motions also.
I'm just thinking, and maybe this is appropriately handled under other business. We may be asked for our opinion on 2 articles that we are not involved with. The gym floor and school committee's request for funding from free cash for their 10-year review. These are not capital planning articles. They're both good articles, but I think that we should be prepared by saying they did not come before us. I mean, if you want me to defer this conversation, we can defer it to other business, but I think we should be prepared to say they did not come before us. We hold no opinion on them. They're fine articles, but we hold no opinion.
I think that's what we had talked about earlier, but to solidify it under 8, we'll bring it back and just make sure everybody agrees to that statement.
Okay.
Okay.
But-
Any other comments under 6 and 7, capital planning committees, articles or motions?
I
Any
had a
comments on
quick-
town meeting presentation? Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of didn't get all the names you called out. I thought I'd signed up to do one of the presentations. I think I remember the pain in my arm as Roger twisted it behind my back.
Okay, which one did you want to do?
I'm not sure.
happy to give him Woodside Pumping Station.
That's the
Oh,
one.
well, you can do that, Diab, if you'd like to do
Okay,
it. Sure.
I will. Let me do that.
Okay. That's no problem.
Jim, could I say one thing quickly?
Tom, you don't mind, Chris, you don't mind doing the traffic improvements at Lynch?
I don't remember drawing that short stick, but sure, that's
I
fine.
think you've drawn the short stick, you know?
Jim?
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the Lynch traffic. I believe Michelle Pryor was going to present it from the select board, Chris, so you may want to touch base with Michelle on that one. The deferred or strategic maintenance fund, the town manager was happy to present that one. She was increasing the appropriation from 100,000 to 200,000, as the committee knows. So if it's okay with the committee, the town manager would present the strategic maintenance fund article.
Sure, and I'll speak to it because it's a positive direction for the town.
Thank you.
All right, other business. Roger, do you want to make a motion for the gym floor and the,
Well, we've got the revised CPC report to get to.
okay. Okay, where is that here? I don't see it. Committee regarding.
6.
Okay, the capital planning report is revised. The Has everybody got the latest draft? We do have a little issue regarding information John Miller sent around. And some members got it last night, some didn't. Chris, you want to jump in and you looked into it, and
Yeah.
called it to my attention.
So I have a statement to read tonight that was coordinated with the Attorney General's office today, and in a moment, people will understand why. It's only a couple of minutes. Last night at about 6:45, our Vice Chair, Roger McPeak, sent out to the Capital Planning Committee a draft report for review by members in advance of this evening's meeting. Such communication is expressly permitted under open meeting law, so long as there is no subsequent deliberation by email. Roger's email last night was titled, "Do not respond," in caps. At approximately 9:30 last night, another member of this committee responded to this email and did so to a quorum of the committee, though not the full committee, with statements and expressions which the Attorney General's Office of Open Government believes today constituted deliberation outside of a public meeting, which is prohibited by the open meeting law. Although it is not apparent, to me anyway, that any other CPC member joined in further deliberation by email, the Attorney General has cautioned that they have found in the past that the actions of a single member can constitute a finding of an open meeting law violation against a public body as a whole. Therefore, to remedy this, the Attorney General has directed us to acknowledge this evening publicly that a subsequent email was sent and to let the public know that they may request a copy of the email and its attachments. They can do so through our chair, Mr. Johnson. Further, because the draft report sent by the vice chair went to our full committee and was in compliance with the open meeting law, and the subsequent response email did not go to the full committee and was deliberation outside of our public meeting, the Attorney General supports our using and sharing tonight the draft report sent by Roger McPeak for review and discussion, acknowledging that every member of this committee is welcome to suggest additions, deletions, or other edits to the document.
Okay. I hope everybody understood that. Let's go back to Roger's draft. Has everybody looked at it? Does anybody have any comments?
I do.
Sure, John.
I believe there are some material mistakes in the draft about the description of Article 27.
Article 26.
Article 27.
Okay, okay, that's your article, correct?
No, it's not my article. It's an article submitted by Finance Committee.
Okay. Do you want to be very careful and explain it to us where you feel there's some discrepancies?
Well, I can pull it up. I can pull the discrepancies up on a screen if you like.
I would rather not have it on a screen tonight, because I don't
Why's
want to
that?
have any more troubles with violation of the open meeting law.
Well, we've heard one side of that argument, so, and I'm not going to respond to it. But I think the description in the description that has been written was not shared, is incorrect. It misdescribes what happened, what FinCom has done in the past. It misdescribes what happened at a March 11th select board meeting. It misdescribes what the advice of counsel was. And I think that it would be a mistake for this committee to put incorrect information in a report filed with town meeting.
All right. Do you want to sort of get specific without putting up the minority report.
No, I want the report to be written properly and correctly summarize what has transpired in the past. I don't think it's a good idea to submit a document with misstatements in it. I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay. Any comments from the rest of the board?
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm lost at sea here. I don't know if I was on this subsequent email chain. Perhaps I was. Some may have been a junk mail, but without
There was
understanding.
no chain. Excuse me, there's no chain, okay? So
I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. I apologize. But getting to this, I'm just saying, I'm ignorant of the concerns you're raising about this timeline, and I can't respond to. So I would, Jimmy is chair. I don't know how we do this, but I don't know what is considered wrong or right about this. So I don't know how to work forward on this. Is there any way we can get someone to tell us what the concerns are?
That's a good question, Deb.
I believe it's up to John to verbally state them. He's the person who has the concerns. So therefore,
well,
if John is more than willing to-
let me describe a few. The draft report says that, for example, that FinCom wasn't aware of two guidance in 2002 and 2006. That is incorrect. Those guidance are in our meeting minutes from prior to this time. The draft that's the version 3 states that that FinCom proposed to select board several bylaws restricting the use of the stabilization fund. That is not correct. That's just factually incorrect.
Where do you see that, John?
In the version 3 that
Specifically where, under what article? I'm looking at version 3 right now.
we're all talking about my only concerns relate to Article 20, the comments in there about Article 27. That's the only thing that concerns me. Everything else is fine with me. That statement is just not correct.
Starts on page 3.
Article
The
27
case,
was
they're not
read to
numbered, which
Finance
is annoying.
Committee in consultation with the select board. Planning board was added in the motion after warrant was closed to evaluate and recommend the purpose of funding levels of the stabilization account. The select board has elected to create its own committee to evaluate levels.
That's not
of
the
building.
paragraph I'm talking about. Find the paragraph that begins this spring.
Yeah, so you're looking for Article 27, which is
I was just reading Article 27 out of draft 3. And I get to the spot where the select board has elected to create its own committee to evaluate the level of funding of the building and capital stabilization funds, possibly including mechanisms such as debt service or general overrides for the funds. Only the select board has the authority to bring these recommendations to town meeting. CPC sees that half of the articles as beyond the scope of the finance committee and overcomes events. Regarding the purpose of the funds through the fall of 23.
Jim, do you want to have a productive conversation, or do you want to read the whole thing? You want me to?
John, I've asked you to be specifically.
I have been very specific.
We're not going to spend much time in this.
Okay, well, that's your call.
Can we share screen and show the existing or the modified CPC draft report?
Colby, can you bring up that report, please?
Yep, I can do that.
And I'm going to ask you to move down relatively quickly.
Sure.
By the way,
I have my camera off and guys, I'm muted only because I'm driving right now, but I'm listening in.
Do you live in a car, Chris?
Yeah, I've been at the boathouse for 2
stop,
hours
stop.
and I'm
And
now.
you
Up a little
always
bit.
seem to be in the car.
Up a little bit, please.
Right there.
Perfect. So I believe,
If you look at the paragraph begins this spring.
that's your objection.
No, do you have the patience to hear it or not? I don't need to, it's not, I'm trying to correct what you've written, Roger. If you are uninterested in that, that's
I'm-
okay.
John, you got a
interest-
couple minutes. Why don't we instead of discussing, talking about, just tell us what you want. Tell us what you say.
I'm saying that the statement in that paragraph begins this.
Read the statement so we all understand what you're saying.
I'm going to tell you what my objection is. I'm not going to read it. It's on the screen. FinCom did not propose a bylaw. We didn't propose a bylaw to anyone. It's clear that what we did. Nor did FinCom propose any restrictions on either funds. Those statements are factually incorrect. I have the records of what we proposed. We did neither such thing. That's number one. We proposed 2 articles, one of which was recommended some accounting changes for the funds, had nothing to do with this topic at all. The second article we proposed was to work jointly with the select board to prepare a draft bylaw. We didn't propose a bylaw, and we certainly never proposed any restrictions on either funds. Those statements are wrong.
You had a long and intense discussion with town council.
It did not happen.
And contentious
One
discussion.
person at a time,
It
please.
did not happen, Roger. So that those statements are incorrect. So nor did town council provide an opinion that what we proposed was, quote, illegal, unquote. That's not correct. The council advised that the override language in the CSF, the language in the text of the override, was very broad because it included the words including but not limited to, following by a list of expenditures. What council advised was that no bylaw could narrow the scope of the language in the override. This entire paragraph misstates what happened and what FinCom did. It's wrong. And
So you're saying that town council just randomly used the word no bylaw can limit the scope of the funds because that's just what they do. They just sort of bring that up. You don't.
No, I'm not saying that at
believe
all,
you led
Roger.
him down that path.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I was surprised by what council said. I didn't expect that. Frankly, I wasn't leading him anywhere. That's just incorrect. So what I believe town council said is that because the language passed by the voters was broad, no subsequent attempt by anyone to limit what was in the override language could be effective.
So
And
could
that's
someone
why the bylaw idea, no matter what its content was, didn't make sense to him. But it wasn't that FinCom stood up and proposed something that was illegal. That wasn't it. And people,
excuse me,
it's just
John.
wrong. The statement's wrong.
Wait, one at a time, John. Let's
I'm-
get down. Your time's almost up. Let's try to get this thing resolved. So you
So
have a
I-
problem with that paragraph, correct?
I think it's wrong. I think it's incorrect and it shouldn't be in there. I'm not done.
Are you ever done?
Well, thank you, Helen.
I'll
I
let-
appreciate
Well,
that.
seriously.
John has the floor. Let him speak for a few minutes. His time's almost up. Let John speak.
The essence of what happened on March 11th was an education to me and I think to people on the select board. I think it's fair to say at least one member of the select board was surprised that even a bylaw couldn't limit the scope of what was the text of the override. So so now you go down to guidelines. I asked town council, well, if a bylaw isn't binding, in other words, a town bylaw couldn't overcome the language in the override, in the text of the override, then what about the guidelines? And it's my understanding from that discussion that the guidelines that you propose in the motion that you have, which is fine, FinCom is never going to interfere with what CPC is trying to do. It's fine. But the notion that the guidelines are binding on anyone, I was called into question by town council. So what the message from town council was, it's the language in the override that governs, and that no bylaw, we proposed a bylaw, which we were trying to say, okay, look, if we can identify what the scope of the funds are, then we can go out, budget for the number, and raise more money. We're trying to get more money into these funds. We're not the enemy here. This language is incorrect.
Jim,
You just contradicted
Okay.
yourself. You said you
Yeah.
didn't propose
John.
a bylaw, and then you said you did propose a bylaw.
No, I read you that here's what the bylaw says, that we propose to see if the town will direct the finance committee in consultation and cooperation with the select board to present a draft bylaw for consideration at the 2024 town meeting. That's et cetera. But we didn't talk about the content of it. We didn't say it was going to be restrictive. We just proposed the idea of a bylaw. That's as far as it went. That's
Jimmy,
it.
can I,
Yes, Mark.
something, so, this is direct from town council, so, a bylaw was discussed at the select board meeting on the 11th. But, he said he indicated, wait a minute. It wouldn't be legal because it would be an end run around the statute and the special act, but no specific language was proposed.
We're not in the business of writing bylaws. We were trying to come up with some way to move the funding issue forward. These paragraphs are wrong. They should not be included in its report. It's
Hey, how
wrong.
about if we just put, John, this spring, the finance committee proposed to the select board several
Suggestions?
suggestions restricting the use of the stabilization fund.
We did not. We
You
did
did
not
not make any suggestions to
to
the,
restrict anything. That is not correct.
So it sounds like a bylaw of some sort was considered, else town council wouldn't have reacted.
that's what I'm saying.
So if assuming that town council's depiction is correct, then what was the content of the discussion? If it wasn't to create this bylaw, which we don't know what's in it, how did the town council arrive at a conclusion that a bylaw had been discussed? I'm confused. I'm just
You're-
legitimately confused as to what
Well,
happened.
you're misunderstanding. Mark can read the email again, but we had the idea of a bylaw was floated to the select board on March 11th with no content, no expansion, no restriction, no nothing as to what the content of that bylaw would be.
And what was
So
the
on March
purpose?
11th.
Was to
FinCom
use
did
the guide.
float The
Yes,
idea of a bylaw.
we floated the idea of a bylaw.
But
but
what
that
was
was
the
it.
purpose of the bylaw, John?
So that everyone could then go out and say, okay, here's what we're trying to fund.
Right, but
Here's
I'm
what the
still,
dollar amount would be.
but what was the notion behind the bylaw? There must have been some specific, what is it you were trying to accomplish? That's the thing, I'm still very confused. You must have mentioned something about why a bylaw was needed. And what was the deliberation that led to the thought that you needed a bylaw, and what would that bylaw had done?
It's very similar to the idea of the guidelines. The idea of the guidelines. So you have another article that you voted, the CPC voted, to revisit the guidelines, correct? It's
Yes.
the same idea. The idea is to describe what's in these buckets so that they can be priced. That's all. So
okay,
it
so-
wasn't to restrict. So I understand people are mad, okay, that people are mad.
No,
Again,
John,
but
I'm
this is
not mad, I'm
incorrect.
confused.
John, someone's trying to talk and we're.
So if the intent was to come up with new sorts of fundings or to come up with a committee to investigate this, then that's not a bylaw. Because a bylaw would provide real direction, right? Because that would go into the town bylaws. So if it's just simply to set up a committee of people to investigate, then maybe that's a town meeting committee, but I don't see that as a bylaw. So that's why the word bylaw, it has a very specific meaning to me, and it implies something about putting something permanently into the town bylaws. So there's got to be something, so why choose a bylaw rather than setting up a study committee? Because you can go to
The
town meeting
finance-
and you can, so
I-
that's where I'm confused about.
We're not talking about the logic of what FinCom proposed to this select board. We're talking about the accuracy of the report that is before this committee.
I agree, John. That's exactly what I'm
is
trying to
not-
understand.
What is described is not accurate.
But John, we have two people who have come to different conclusions, right? So, I can't, I trust both of you are telling the truth, but obviously you both have very different opinions about what happened. So I can't make a decision without trying to figure out more about what happened. You were there. You have said that you weren't discussing a bylaw, but somehow town council thinks you were. So
I did not say we weren't discussing a bylaw. I said that we weren't proposing any restrictions on these funds through a bylaw. That's what
Okay.
that's what the minutes, that's what the proposed language says. And it says,
So-
that we proposed to the select board several bylaws, which implies that we actually presented a bylaw, and then it uses the word restricting. Neither of
So-
those things are true.
So what did you present to the select board, please?
I just read the articles. I read the article to you.
But that's an article, not a bylaw. So
It's
you
a
only
draft
discuss,
of it's a draft of an article. Just like tonight, we were discussing with members of the select board a proposed article a motion that you'd like to add to Springtown meeting.
okay, so it was an article.
We were discussing the possibility of doing something. That's all.
So you were discussing an article to town meeting, which may lead to future bylaws. So there's we've got to agree on facts somewhere, and that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, could I, just 2 seconds, what I've been told, and I haven't gone on the website, but on the website, it has all of the backup materials that would have gone to the select board on March 11th that would have been presented to the select board. And I'm being told it's on the website. Now, as I said, I
Okay,
haven't gone on there. I'm happy to do that.
It's in our meeting minutes. It's in our meeting minutes too, Mark.
Okay,
Mark, can I jump in with a quick question? It's Chris. The camera's not
Sure,
on, 'cause
Chris.
I'm driving.
Wait, Diab, are you done? Or do you
yeah,
wanna
I'm
come
done.
back?
I'm done.
No, I just wanted to ask a clarification of Mark. I was also driving home from the boathouse on March 11th, and I heard some of the conversation at the table. I do remember Jay using, if he didn't say illegal, he said not legal. So, I mean, we're splitting hairs on the actual word. But I had a hard time following the discussion at the table because I wasn't familiar with the documents the board was discussing. I got home, I went to the select board's webpage. There was a 107-page PDF packet available on the page, Mark, but there was nothing in there from John Miller. And I believe that's because he emailed some documents to Rich Mucci or maybe management the morning of the meeting. So if that packet has been updated, that's great, because I still haven't been able to see even what was presented. But if your understanding is it's been updated, that's helpful, and I will happily go take a look at it, but it was not there when people were looking for it.
You can see it on our meeting minutes. It's in our meeting minutes as well.
Chris, I can't say for sure if it was updated. I haven't, I'd only do that if I confirmed it myself, but I've been trying to reach the select board's recording secretary, unable to do that because I think you're correct. I think there were documents that came in the night of the meeting, and I don't know whether the website would have been updated, but that's an answer I can get. I just don't know if I can get that at 8:20 tonight, so.
Okay. Well, let's move on. We've discussed this. Does anybody else on the committee want to make comments?
Can I just ask, can I ask one more question, Jimmy,
Sure.
of Mark? What is the hard stop, Mark, for when our report from the Capital Committee needs to go to the printer?
Okay, we just had a meeting on this today. We're hoping that the reports will go out sometime next week. There's 3 reports. We try to be as efficient as possible. We have the Personnel Board report, the Capital report, and there was a 3rd one in there, which I'm drawing a blank on right now, but we try to mail them all out, pretty much the same time. So, sometime next week, Chris, I would think, Monday's a holiday, so like Tuesday, Wednesday.
So that's helpful. Jimmy, the reason I'm asking, as you know, from time to time, we tentatively approve a report or a document and we defer to the chair or vice chair to do some wordsmithing with management. This clearly John Miller is close to this issue. He was at the table having conversations. I wasn't there. I was hearing it in my car, unable to find the documents. But to Diab's point, different people have different impressions of what happened. And I think it is important. I support sort of John, where I think John is coming from is, the words matter. So if it wasn't a bylaw, it was something else, we should get that right. If Jay Tallerman didn't say it was illegal, he said it's not within the law or something like that, we can tweak that too. The meeting was recorded and it's on WinCam. I am comfortable, Jimmy, approving this report in draft form, but deferring to you, Roger, and John, and it would be just the 3 of you because we can't have a quorum, to work with management, review that tape. And this should not be a subjective thing. It's the words that were used. So whether it's an article, a suggestion, a restriction, a bylaw, it's just whatever was said, and it's just the facts, ma'am. And if John has identified some things that should be phrased differently to more accurately reflect what was said, I think that is worth doing. The only other comment I wanted to make to the report, Jimmy, is just language around the history of the bylaw. And this is with respect to the CPA, rather than saying something happened late, just kind of, again, keep it to just the facts, ma'am. I think we could say, the warrant subsequent to the warrant closing on March 15th, the select board was presented with a bylaw, considered it, they opened the warrant, they voted it on whatever date it was. And so consequently, the capital planning committee did not have an opportunity to review. So I think it's in our interest to kind of, again, control the temperature of everything to try to avoid the kind of the subjective, or I'm not saying anybody's intending to be judgmental, but avoiding that impression. So I'm okay, Jimmy, approving it in draft form with the understanding you, Roger, can work with John Miller to literally just go through, and if the words weren't used, if it's a different word, use that word.
Any other comments from the board?
I think that's a good suggestion.
I'm happy to make that motion.
We're just to make this clearer, Chris, you're just specifically talking to that one paragraph.
One section of the report. There's several paragraphs, but yes,
No.
Article 27 discussion. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I'm not referring, Jimmy, to the specific paragraph because I'm driving, so I don't have my screen turned on. I understand John has a number of issues with the draft that Roger sent out last night. What I'm saying is I'll make the motion to approve the report, the draft report, subject to some continued revisions that that we entrust to you, Jimmy, Roger, working with John to review the March 11th meeting to ensure that the words that are being used to describe the events are accurate. And as an example, that means if it wasn't restriction, but something else was said, use that. If it wasn't a bylaw, if it was a concept, if it was an idea, if it was an article, use that. You know, if Jay Tallerman did not say illegal, and I remember him saying something awfully like that, whatever he said, that should be in the report.
Okay.
I'm
Jim,
okay with it.
But sorry, it's coming through kind of piecemeal, but one of the slides, this could be where the confusion is. If there's a bullet that has a bylaw is needed to provide guidance from town meeting to SB, FinCom, CPC on the balanced and proper use of these funds. Once the mechanism is established, the next step post fall town meeting be to set funding levels reviewed periodically. So that's a bullet from the PowerPoint. It used to be Article B. John, I don't know if that sounds
Yeah,
correct
no,
to you.
the presentation's on our in our meeting minutes. It's posted. So there's no doubt about what's in there. It's there. But
So a bylaw was discussed.
I was just trying to clear up the confusion of where the bylaw discussion came from.
No,
That's all I
no,
was-
yeah, I read that to you, that BB said to see if the town will direct the finance committee in consultation with the select board to draft a bylaw for consideration at fall town meeting. Of course, but we didn't propose the text of any bylaw. We didn't suggest any restrictions. We just said, write it down so we can fund it, so we can be advocates to get more money. That was the purpose of that article. That it was a draft. And Tallerman said you can't do it. So that was the end of that. This is not the reason to castigate FinCom in a report.
Well,
So
I believe it's a bylaw or a restriction or an article. And I do believe town council probably indicated whatever it was would not be legal. I don't really think we should spend much time on it because I don't think we're going to get a good answer. But that's up to the discretion of the committee. Chris has a motion on the table. Chris, my understanding is you do agree with all the other articles.
Mr.
And
Chair,
I would like to narrow the discussion of Chris's down to what I believe John had said, that paragraph in the spring.
It's not a paragraph. It's more than a paragraph. It's the discussion of Article 27.
Okay, what's the committee want to do?
Mr. Chair, I think we have to vote Article 9 and Article 10 in order to finish this this
I
report.
understand that. But do we want to, so what are we gonna have, a meeting next week? Is the proposal to come up with a final, is next week too late, Mark?
It's cutting it
To make
close.
a report.
Yeah, Jim, that's cutting it extremely close. We're trying to get the materials copied and distributed, you know, the middle of the week, so that's on until Wednesday night. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but
Yeah, Jim, I'm
Yes.
not available next week anyway. I'm on an airplane, but I
Okay.
mean, the intention of and I agree with Roger, we need to vote 9 and 10, but the intention of my motion is to approve the report as a final draft but give you and Roger the authority to make final edits in consultation with John Miller and management after reviewing that meeting on March 11th. So the words matter. And we should get the words right, but not just spoken words, exhibits, documents, PowerPoints, just as Mark was suggesting. I'm totally in favor of that.
Can you repeat the motion, please? So when we vote on it, we know.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. Thanks,
So
Chris.
I move to approve this draft report to town meeting with the understanding that we give authority to the chair and vice chair to make some additional edits as warranted in consultation with John Miller and management, addressing the issues John has raised tonight after they have had a chance to review the March 11th meeting and any exhibits that were discussed and presented to the select board, so that the characterization of what was discussed is accurate, an accurate representation of what was presented by John on behalf of FinCom.
Thanks.
Okay, there's been a motion on the table is it seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I believe it's out of
I'll
order
call it
until
off.
we have voted
Roger.
No,
9 and
yeah.
10.
Yeah,
Roger.
I believe it is out of order until we have voted 9 and 10.
All right, then let's table that and go back to discuss 9 and 10 under other business.
I think we can dispose of 9 and 10 quickly, Mr. Chair, if
Okay.
you'll allow me to make a
Um,
motion.
9 and, you'd like to make a motion, Roger, go ahead.
I'd like to move that capital recommend favorable action on the CPC, which will be Article 9, and the bylaw Article 10, with the proviso that it is our expectation that town meeting will approve our Article 37 second motion.
Second.
So can I
Yes,
just
Chris.
clarify? So rather than say proviso, because our motion comes under the last article of town meeting, and so we will have voted on Articles 9 and 10. I wonder if there's a slightly different way to say it.
Please.
Rather than, in other words, you can't make this conditional on something that already happened, right? So
Right,
maybe it's just more appropriate to say, the expectation. The
Fine.
expectation. Yeah, I'd be more comfortable with that, because it's not intended to hold it up. It sends a signal to town meeting that we support 9 and 10, but we feel the study committee is important as well. But I don't want to tether them, if that makes sense.
Excellent.
that's a good idea.
Amendment to my motion seconded.
Okay. All in favor? Roger,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Diab.
Aye.
Has Derek joined us yet? No. Johnson? Yes, 1, 2, 3. 6 voting affirmative. 1 member absent. All right. Now let's go back to
Jim?
the draft for the capital planning report.
Jim, if I
So,
could.
yeah,
Yes, Mark.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to update the group that I was able to reach Patty, the select board's administrative assistant, and she forwarded me the presentation that was sent to the select board for that Monday night meeting. So I just sent it out to the entire capital committee this evening. So everyone should.
Would we want to take a while to look at it?
Well,
Everybody wants to see it?
it sure would be nice to nail this down so that we don't have this go another week.
Can you get it up on the board, Mark?
Well, Colby,
It does say presenting draft bylaw
Yes.
under BB.
I just sent it to you. It's probably going to take a minute to arrive, but if you could share it for us here.
Yeah, I just got it, so I'll share it.
I could have pulled it up.
I can pull it out.
I could have pulled it up from our meeting minutes.
Okay, Article A, does everybody see it?
Yep.
Is there anywhere specific I should scroll to?
Right there.
Okay.
I
Article B.
I stand by my writing. I'm willing to revise it to say not legal instead of illegal, if that's considered inflammatory. But I think that Article BB indicates that a bylaw was discussed, or the creation of a bylaw was discussed. Establishing guidelines, we can use guidelines. I don't care about guidelines or restrictions, but that was the scope of the discussion that evening.
Great, because the word restrictions is the word that caused me the most heartache, Roger. We weren't taking a position on any of that stuff like that. We were trying to figure out how to price the amount of money that's necessary to fill the hole.
Well, it does say bylaw.
So I think
It actually says bylaw in red in bold on slide 9.
The point, but we didn't propose a bylaw, which is implied in the current draft. Chris.
John, it says a bylaw is needed in bold and red. A bylaw is needed to provide guidance from town meeting to select board and FinCom.
Let me try this one more time. We did not propose the text of a bylaw.
But John, you
we proposed the idea of a bylaw, which I've been saying for half an hour.
I think, John, that, you know, I know, I think we should just go with the report as said. They can discuss that at town meeting floor. It does say bylaw. I don't care who drafted it. You're making the proposal to the Board of Selectmen, aren't you?
There never was a bylaw. It doesn't exist. We never got there.
You have here a bylaw is needed to provide guidance from town meeting to SB, Finance Committee, Capital, and the balance and proper use
I give up.
of these funds.
You're not listening. You're not listening, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Could I, Jim?
Yes, Mark.
The concept of having a bylaw is what was put forward. The actual wording, the exact words of the bylaw were not put forward. And John, you can correct me if that is inaccurate. The concept definitely was, it's in the slides.
I've been saying that for the last 45 minutes.
Well, I'm trying to move it along here. I'm trying to
agree with you.
I'm just saying the wording of the bylaw was not put forward, but the concept was introduced.
Okay, so how about if we put in the spring, FinCom proposed a concept to the selectmen of proposing a bylaw restricting.
No, that is not what we proposed.
You proposed a bylaw to generate guidelines, correct?
So that we could price what was needed to fund it.
But you did propose a bylaw.
I give up. You're not listening.
John, I'm reading from the slide. You proposed a bylaw to establish conditions for disbursement of funds, correct? That's what it says. It says guidelines for disbursement of funds. Is that not what that first slide said?
It says whatever it says, but we didn't write anything. We were introducing the idea to the select board. That's all we were doing.
You were making yes, but you know, when I hear the words proposed a bylaw, it doesn't necessarily mean that you proposed content for a bylaw, but you certainly proposed the bylaw with some particular reason, and you proposed what the scope of the bylaw should be. So yes, you did not say the words, but you certainly suggested that there should be a bylaw, and it should consider itself with guidelines for disbursement of funds.
Why doesn't our description of our proposal to select board and our description just refer to this presentation? Let the town meeting do it. Why do we have to characterize it in a way that is producing controversy among us. Why not just
Because
say, the
I will be
chair
very
of
clear, John.
FinCom went to select
Hey,
board and gave
guys, we
the
can talk
attached
about this all
presentation.
night. I
Yeah.
believe it's time to move on. We've got the slide, we've got the wording, we've seen it in print. Does anybody want to vote this and just get it over with? Because I think we can discuss this for another 2 hours and not get anywhere.
I would
I'd
I
like
would like
someone-
John, Jimmy, can I second Chris's motion from about 10 minutes ago?
Well, I'm
Which
really
was-
not too interested in sitting down and spending time trying to come up with some words when we know it's a bylaw. I'd rather just vote it and they can have the discussion on town meeting floor and let the moderator decide. It's, you know,
Passing the
I don't
buck,
mind
Jimmy.
tweaking it, but the word bylaw is used a couple times that I've seen. I'd rather just vote it and get it done with. I think we could spend 2 hours and not get anywhere. But I'm only one member. So if Roger will work with me, I'll meet John once and we'll try to work it out.
And Jimmy, the reason I want my motion to stand is that I can appreciate how a layperson reading the report might think there were specific written bylaw proposals coming from FinCom or coming from John on behalf of FinCom. So that did not happen, but the presentation speaks for itself. So I think there is maybe a little wordsmithing to do, to be clear. I think Diab kind of hit it on the head. And I hope it doesn't take you 2 hours. It certainly shouldn't, because the discussion on the 11th didn't take 2 hours. So WinCam has a recording of the meeting. You got a copy of the presentation. I trust you and Roger to review this with John and Mark and any other supporting staff, just to be sure we get the words right. I trust you guys to do that. That's why you make the big bucks.
Roger, what's your opinion?
I will vote favorably with Mr. Nixon's proposal.
Okay, there's a proposal on the table. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ellen, yes. Roger,
Aye.
Please do a
John.
roll call. Please do a roll call vote.
I am. Okay, I'll start over. Roger,
Aye.
Ellen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and I'll go unanimously. So we will meet. Let's schedule it for Monday morning. Mark, is 9 o'clock okay with everybody?
Not with me. I can do it any afternoon, but I'm traveling starting Friday. Have to do it on Zoom.
What time is available?
any
What time is
afternoon.
good with you, John?
You can do it any afternoon from Saturday through next Saturday, but you know, the deadline's before that. I would like to suggest some revisions if you would consider it. I think we might do it with 5-minute meeting.
Roger, when do you want to do it? You want to do it Monday afternoon?
That's fine with me. That would,
Mark, are you available at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock Monday afternoon?
I'll make any time work. I was gonna suggest something sooner, maybe in the next couple of days. I'll make myself
about tomorrow?
available. Yeah, I don't see this taking a lot of time. It certainly shouldn't. Let's put it that way. And I would rather try to get the report out earlier next week so it could be done with the other reports I mentioned. So that would be my preference. I'll make myself available anytime at all that you guys can make it.
Roger and John, are you available tomorrow at 4?
yes.
I am working on finishing our budget. This is the 2 days that FinCom is the busiest of the entire year. I cannot take time tomorrow to do that, or Friday.
How about Friday?
Understood. That's understood.
How about Friday?
You
Just
mean,
said
you
2
mean,
days.
Flying
you
out or
mean
you
the next 2
available?
days, Thursday and Friday, right, John?
At least, yeah. And no, we're still waiting. I haven't, this is if people will calm down a little bit, this could be easily resolved. I mean,
John,
he's taking shots at FinCom in this little piece of your report. It's unnecessary.
John, you
Just
speak
refer
in such a
people to the
demeaning
meetings.
manner, it makes people irritated.
I'm sorry.
That's the crux of it.
Well, so that's why you're gonna punish FinCom, because you're mad at me.
No,
That makes no sense, Helen. You know better.
it's the way you're talking to people.
Oh, come on.
Okay, John, are you available? You're not available Monday morning? You're available for Monday afternoon?
I told you I'm available anytime after Saturday in the afternoon. Each afternoon. I'm not unavailable. I'm trying to be cooperative. I am, this is,
Okay, let's try for Monday at 4 o'clock.
I'm gonna
Is that agreeable with Roger and
I'm gonna
John and
send
Mark?
suggested revisions that I'm hopeful will be acceptable to everyone.
All right,
Okay, we voted the report with the
okay.
conditions that we can make modifications to that article. May I
All right.
suggest we move on?
Okay, I suggest we meet at 4 o'clock Monday afternoon at the town hall.
I'm on Zoom.
All right,
Jimmy, I was gonna send a Zoom link out. Actually, I was gonna ask Meg. I don't know if she dropped off, dropped off the meeting here, but
No, I'm still here.
if I ask you real nice, Meg, would you?
Hmm.
I can do it too.
Mark, so
Yeah,
you want to do
I
by
love
Zoom?
that. I owe you, Meg, okay? How's that? So,
So, 4 o'clock on Monday.
yeah, thank you.
And it's gonna be Zoom, okay.
Yep.
All right, Roger, go ahead.
This was the last thing that I had, which is, I would like the committee to vote, that we take no position. And I'm sorry, I don't have the articles. Chris can probably answer this off the top of his head on the two articles that we know will probably be asked in a position on: the high school gym floor and the school 10-year plan. They were not capital articles, but we will likely be asked a position on. And I recommend that we officially take no position, as they didn't come through the capital planning process. Although we should be able to say these are good. We recognize these as being valuable projects to the town, but we take no position.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Chris, Helen, Roger, John,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Unanimous, okay. What else do we have, gentlemen and lady? The next meeting, I believe we'll let you know. I don't think it's gonna be Wednesday. I don't see any purpose in it, but I will let you know at the next meeting. We'll send around the request for a meeting to everybody, when it's deemed necessary. I'd like to move for adjournment.
Sir,
Yes.
we had minutes to do.
Oh, the minutes, are we gonna, okay,
And unfortunately, I think we need to start this one off in the way that we started off the revised capital planning report. A member sent off their revisions to the entire committee, which will be interpreted as a violation of the open meeting law, and the stuff has to stop. We can't do that. And you can't, the only people that are authorized to sort of send off information to the entire committee are staff. They can do that as information, the vice chair and the chair. And they are strictly for not to be responded to and not to provide your view of the world and deliberate. So we've got a problem again. We're going to have to offer that those proposed meeting minute revisions be made available to any public member, and we're doing that right now, any public member that wants to see them via request to the chair. And it's just got to stop. We can't operate. This is 2 times in 24 hours that this has happened. This is serious. You know, I take open meeting law stuff very seriously. I know other members do, but this can't go on.
As do I. I don't, if I did send comments, I thought I sent them only to Colby. That was my intent.
It went to everybody.
So that was a mistake. The other one, the other accusation that I responded to all is incorrect. So, but this one was a mistake by me. I thought I sent him to Colby only. That was my purpose.
John, I never
Apologize for that.
accused you of responding to all. In fact, I specifically said your email did not go to the whole committee, but it went to a quorum of the committee.
No,
And
no,
that
no.
constitutes
No.
deliberation.
No. I'm talking about the minutes, Chris.
Oh, so I agree with everything Roger said. I know that everybody on this committee wants to do the right thing. We're working hard. And it's especially challenging in this day and age when so much information is available electronically. It's that Toyota just-in-time delivery, and we sometimes maybe feel compelled to send that out. Members can certainly communicate with the chair and vice chair. That's okay. But we can't be communicating, with a quorum, and nor should we a quorum or the full committee, because that constitutes deliberation. And the AG's office is not going to look kindly on, repeat violations. So we need to knock it off. But I think given how late it is and what we've accomplished tonight, my preference, Jimmy, would be to punt on the minutes entirely right now. Take a breather, and we can always come back and review the minutes of that meeting as well as the minutes of this meeting. And we'll probably have a lot to talk about.
I think you're right,
Second,
Chris.
seconded.
There's been a motion to postpone the meeting of last week's minutes. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 John?
Fine.
6-0. We'll take it up at the next next meeting.
Jimmy, could I say just a quick two things?
Sure.
So, there are two things about open meeting law. One thing which might help in the future is that if the chair and vice chair, instead of sending it directly to the members, BCCs them. That way, if they choose to reply, it only goes to the chair. So we've been doing that with planning board where they get BCC'd and they can't reply all because it just doesn't work. The second thing is that there is such a thing as called a serial violation of open meeting law. So even if you don't send email to a quorum, if you send it to one person and that person sends it to another and you establish a quorum through serial communications, that's also a violation. So the best bet is only ever send things to the chair and vice chair or to staff. So
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you.
Agreed.
Suggestions.
Is there any other business for the board?
One brief thing, Mark, you're not gonna be in the office on Monday. It's a holiday, so do you still want the call to be at 4 PM?
Patriots.
You're on
Day.
mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, if you do a Zoom, I'll make it work on my end. So
He'll be
Okay.
at he'll be at mile 18.
that's right.
There you go, right.
In
Are
my
you
car,
running, Mark?
in my car maybe, but
Maybe
yeah.
in the ambulance, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll send-
I'll be on the road too. I'll probably take the call around 4.
Is there a better time?
I want to get this done. Mark's got to get this to the printer. 5, 6 o'clock, whatever everybody wants to do. Mark, what's better for you?
Jimmy, I'm the paid staff member, so I'll make anything work. You guys are volunteering your time, so.
I forgot it was a holiday, to be honest with you.
You want to do it Tuesday?
I guess I have to do it Tuesday.
Do it.
4 PM on Tuesday?
Yeah, but okay with you, Roger and John?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll send it out for Tuesday the 16th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Minnie.
welcome. Okay, goodbye.
Good night, everybody. I'd like to move for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a long, hard
Aye.
meeting, and thank you for the public for listening in.
Recording stopped.